GroupBy, PivotBy are two brand new functions to Excel that allow you to emulate what pivot tables do. My name's David Van Am and I love Excel. By the way, if you want to download this workbook, you can find it on the description of this video below the link. Let's get started. So here we have a pivot table that's looking at sum of sales by industry from this bigger table. And we're going to replicate that with GroupBy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write equals GroupBy. Press tab to lock that in. And then you have a lot of inputs, but actually only the first three have no square brackets around them, which means that they are mandatory. So first I'm going to do row fields, which is going to be this one. Then I'm going to press a comma to go to values, which is this one. Then I get to choose my function, how I want to aggregate it. We're going to do sum, so I'm just going to double click that. And I close my brackets because the others are all optional. Note that I have included my headers in my source, even though they don't show up here, and it has given me a total, but we can adjust those, and we're going to look at all the ways that you can use these and all the optional inputs throughout this video. All right, so we also have other aggregations, so I can do equals group by, and we have the row fields. I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to do the values like this. And then in the functions, I get actually 17 things here. Probably the most common ones are sum, percent of, and average, and count a. The others I use a lot less. So here I'm just going to do percent of. It's just going to be a percent of total. And then I'm going to do what to do with the headers. So you have four options. You have no headers if you don't select them. Yes, but don't show, which is the default, that one. No, but generate. And then yes and show. So usually I would select it and do yes and show. I find that to be the most obvious one. Then you have a total, what to do with that. Grand totals, no totals, or things at subtotals. Subtotals are only relevant if you have a hierarchy. So I'm going to do no totals just to show you that's a thing. And then the other things, sort order. So I'm going to say I want to sort it by the second column. So I'm going to do 2, and that's going to sort it in ascending order in the second column. Filter array and field relationships we'll get to later on. So I'm going to close the brackets there, and it's going to give me that. You do have to manually make it a percentage. Control-Shift-5 will do that, or click this one. All right. It doesn't give you the fancy formatting like a pivot table does. That is one of the disadvantages, but one of the main advantages is that it does update automatically. So if this becomes, for example, a new category, let's say architecture, then suddenly all of my pivot bys will now have architecture, but my pivot table does not. I need to right click and refresh. Furthermore, if you were to change the name of a header, so if I were to change this to income, suddenly then my group bys will update, but my pivot table will not. And if I even right click and refresh that, it's going to not give me the totals because this has changed and I have to add them back. So yeah, note that if I had manually formatted, then my total is not in the color that I would want, which is a little bit irritating on this. I need to make that a percentage as well. So there are some advantages that you can build in the formatting with pivot tables a lot more. Notice, by the way, that if I add a new one like banking, for example, I will get this spill array. I won't get the annoyance the pivot table has when I right click and refresh. And it gives me an error. Do you want to replace it with the data? Or often it tells me I can't do it if there's another pivot table. So I'm just going to take this cell and I'm going to just copy that and paste it here and delete it. And now it comes back. I'm going to show you a couple of the other options. So I'm going to do equals group by, and I'm going to select this one. Let's do it without the headers, actually, comma, and then the values like this. And then function, I'm going to do a median, which is something you can't do in the regular Excel. And then in the field headers, I'm going to say no, but generate. Total depth, I'm going to say no totals, just to show you another option. And then in sort order, I'm actually going to do -2. That is the way to sort it from highest to lowest rather than from lowest to highest in the second column, which is mostly the one that I do. It's the one I find the most intuitive. Then I'm going to close my brackets and I get it like this. It doesn't show you something very, very useful. It shows you row, field, and value. Note that these are still in percentages, but I can just go back to my regular formatting with Control, Shift, and tilde like that. But yeah, these aren't very useful. I always like to do yes, but show for headers, which sometimes is default, other times isn't. Another thing I'm going to show you is filter array. So this is like the filter function if you've ever used that. Select this column, and then I'm going to say does not equal to design, like that. But if you actually spell it correctly, it will work. Perfect. All right, so that's that one. The optional last input is a very non-common use case that I'll show you in another video where I'm going to talk about what to do with multiple columns. But for now, let's go into pivot by basics. So here I have something with more columns, and pivot by is the same idea, but it allows you to do things across rows and columns, similar to the Excel pivot tables that allows you to do in rows and columns. So with pivot by, I can do, for example, city in my rows, and then my columns can be gender, and then my values are going to be kids here, and then my function is going to be a sum, like that. Note that you have to enter the first 4, whereas group by you have to enter the first 3. I say have to, but actually you are a little bit flexible, and I'll get to that a little bit later on. And I'm going to close my brackets for the defaults, and it shows it to me like this, which is saying that Cardiff man is going to be 4. Let's see if we can find that. So Cardiff man here, and Cardiff man here, and here. So yeah, so that's 4 kids, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. Now, what are the other options? So in pivots by, you do have more things going on here. Now you have row fields. I'm actually going to do this with 2 columns, and column fields I'm going to do a city. I'm going to do values to be kids again, comma, and I'm going to do a sum again. And then I'm going to do the field headers. I'm going to show yes and show. I actually don't like this with pivot by. You'll see why in a little bit. And now we can do a row total depth, row sort order, column total depth, column sort order. That's why you have more essentially. And here I'm going to do the one that is for grand totals and subtotals. And then I'm going to do a row sort order of the second one, like this, and it's going to show it to me like that. So now it's sorting it first like this, and then by that one. Now, personally, what I don't love is when you do the headers, it shows you this. So it just shows city up there and nothing else. It just shows you here are the headers, kids, 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 kids. I find that there are ways that could have been more efficient without 3 rows for headers, really, and repeating a lot of the labels. So that's why for pivot by, I often don't do the field headers. So I would just put a double comma there. And note then that it does the subtotals here. This is a subtotal. It's not incredibly obvious that that's a subtotal just by looking at it, but that's what it's doing. You know, here, for example, it's 4, which is 3 plus 1. It's 8, which is 6 plus 2, etc. And these are the totals like that. If I didn't want the totals for the column, I could do column total depth, no totals, like that. I don't have a hierarchy, so the subtotals only apply if you have a hierarchy, which I only have here in my rows and not my columns. So I'm going to do 0, and then column sort order. There is just 1 column, so I don't need to do anything special with that. I can close my brackets. I do have the filter array. Relative to the last one is only relevant for when you're using percent of total, which I'll show in another video. I'm just going to cut and paste and move this one out the way. Now you can, if you want to do equals pivot by, but leave row fields out. So I'm going to just do a comment directly, and then column fields, I'm actually going to do this one. And then I'm going to do values to be age, and I'm going to do functions to be average. And then I close my brackets, and it will just show it to me like this, which is pretty nice. But in another video, I'm going to show you some more things that you can do with multiple columns, like reordering them or having multiple aggregations in one. And I'm also going to show you in another video what to do with percent of totals and how to do with charts and slices as well. Remember, if you want a copy of this file, you can download it from the website that I have, and look at the description of the video below. Cool. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. My name has been David Benham. I have tons of videos on Excel, PowerPoint, Google Sheets, Zoom, Teams. If you're using Tech of the Workplace, I'm covering my channel. So check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.